Hi, this is Henning from FlippedNormals, and in today's video, we will take a look at how we can use Notion to really speed up our project management. Notion is by far my favorite tool for any kind of project management. If you haven't used Notion before, it's a little bit like a mix between different tools you find in Google Docs. Like it kind of combines Google Sheets and Google Docs into a really efficient and elegant system for creating wikis, tables, and overall data for your production. So in this video, we will create something similar to this, where we are making a little short film and we need to do some management for this. And before we get too much into that, it's really important that you don't overbuild something for your production. You should not build a tool which is designed for 30 to 100 people if you are 3 people or 1 person on your team. Build something that fits your size and do not over-engineer this. If you over-engineer this, what's going to happen is nobody's going to use this whatsoever. So build something that people will actually use. So we'll build something similar to this where we have an overview of the different shots. We have an overview of the different assets we're working on, who's working on it. We will have an overview of the general schedule with who's doing what for different weeks, the different milestones. Then we'll have a look at how to make some wiki pages, like a model checklist with some actual checkboxes like this. How to use code in Notion as well, or rather how to import code snippets like this. And then we'll have a look at how to make like table of content and how to make more text heavy wikis like this. So with that said, let's make a new page and we'll be using this as a reference as we go along. So this is what Notion looks like the first time you boot her up. You can see I have some more personal pages over here, but it will really look like this, where it's just an empty page. And this is almost like you're building your own homepage and you can make this look exactly what you want it to look like. So you can really focus on graphics and make this really nice and user-friendly, or you can just focus purely on tables or whatever you want to do. You can really make this nice. If you haven't used Notion before, it could be a good idea to first go to templates and just have a look at some of these. This can really help you get an idea of what you can actually use Notion for. There's so much information in these ones, so I recommend just having a look. We will not be using any templates for this though. So the first thing we need to do is give this a title. So our project is going to be called Lord of the Fellowship of the Towers. So we're making a little short film based on this. Now, the first thing we are going to be doing is we are going to be making a little table for our crew, just so we can get an overview of who's actually in the project, what they're doing, and how to reach them. So you can see here, when you hit the enter key, you can just keep going up and down. You can type whatever you want to, which is cool because it means you can really quickly type things out to make a nice layout out of it. But what you can also do is you can see what it says here, type / for commands. So we're going to be typing that. And here you can make a basic block with text or a page, which we're definitely going to be doing later on, different headings, or we can go down and we can just type table. And here we have 2 kinds of tables. We have a table which is inline, which will just give us a table on this page, or we can make a full page table. If you make an inline one, that's more for simple data, which just has to be accessible at all times, or at least often. Well, the full page table is more like a Google Sheet. It's kind of like a Google Sheet without too much fancy math and formulas. It's a Google Sheet for organization purposes instead of math. So we're going to make a table inline, and now you can see we have a table here, and we will, where it says untitled, we'll type crew, who's working on it. And now we need a few different properties here. The first one is name. We can also just move this up and down or left to right like this. So name is totally fine. We can leave that the way it is. If you want to change this to something like artist, you can do that as well. Simply type on name, hit enter. And now we can just start to populate this. So we'll have a few different people here. We will have Jeter Paxson, who will be our director. So under tags here, we can add Multiselect, or we can set this to select. This is where we can add a property to each person. So I will not call this tag, I will call this a role. So what are you doing? Hit enter. And now here you can type director. And now you can see he is now director. If you want him to, for instance, to be a TD as well, you can do that. Type TD. And now you can go here and you can just add him as a TD. Then we're going to be adding another property type here, and this will be just text, and this will be Discord. Because in this project, we will imagine that we are using Discord for general team communication, and his ID is Paxson, whatever his might be. And then we can add another one here, see a little plus icon, we can click that, and we can turn this into a property type, and we can turn this into email. So now this will make it a lot easier to email people. These aren't just visuals, they actually have functionality baked into them. So here we can type his email. So now we have his email, and you can see here if you hover over this, it will actually send email, and this opens up your email client and just makes it easier to send emails to people. Then we can add the other people as well. That's me, and we will make me a TD and a texture artist. And we will add the ID, and we will just add email as well. And then we'll add a few more people, which we will definitely just speed up. All right, so now we have 3 people in our crew. You can feel free to add as many people as you want here. It's a really nice idea to have something like this in your project management tool, particularly if you're working remotely and you're not sitting right next to each other. It's just very easy to get an overview of who's actually doing what, particularly if you have people coming into your production. For instance, if you are a small studio, super handy to have something like this. Then we will make a section for the overall production. So what we'll do is we'll type production. This is just text, so this will just be a headline, and we can click on the nice little 6 dots here. And this you can turn this into something else now. So now, for instance, you can turn this into code if you want, block equation. You can turn this into a header. So we will turn this into H3, which is a small header. Then we can make some tables under this. Now this is purely visual, and it just organizes this nicely. So we'll type slash. We'll type table, and in this case we actually want a full page table. So now you can see that we have actually opened up a whole new page, and if you want to go back, you just click up here. You can see the path of it right here. It's almost like the Windows Explorer. So Lord of the Fellowship of Towers, there you go, and you can go in here again now. And now you can give this a title, and this will be called shots. And then we can add a little icon here. So this can be, for instance, see, you can just add some general icon, some kind of trap here, and we can just add a camera. You can just search as well, so you can have a different camera if you want to. So the first one we'll add here will be shot code. This is the general name of the shot, just so we can have something simple to refer to. And then we will add another one here, which will be a select. We only want one property in here, one item in here. And we will call this sequence. And we'll move this to the left. The reason I'm doing this one first and then moving it over is that the first one here can't be anything else. The first one can only be one thing. It can only be a title. So you have to make sure that this isn't, if you want the first one to be like a select type, you have to make one first and then move it over here. So then we'll make a status, and this will be a select. So this is simply what is the status of the shot. And then we'll make a new one here, which will just be text, which will be frame range, which is really useful to know if you're picking up the shot and you just know that this is the correct frame range. There's no ambiguity on it, and everyone in the project agrees. Then we'll make another one here, and this will be a date. So here we can now set an actual date for when is this task being done. And we will call this timeline. And then we'll add another one here, and this will be a select as well. And here we can call this artist. Sorry, click on column and then select artist. If you do what I did now and you accidentally added something here, you could of course just click the X to remove it. We still see it here in database. So what we can do is we click the little 3 dots here. Then we can just do delete, and this deletes it. Then we have another one here, and this can just be text as well. And this can be reference. We could also turn this into a URL. So if you actually have a link to your URL, you can put that there. And then we make another one here. This is the last one. And here we can call this description. So this will be an overall description of the shot. So with this template here, you really have a lot of things for your shot. So under sequence here, This is where we set this to be an actual select. So here we have different properties we can put in, and this will be Sauron ring creation, and we can abbreviate this to SRC. And now you can see here, the next one can also be SRC, next one SRC. The shot code can now be SRC, and this can be 025. The status of it, we have to make a few different statuses. So the status we'll create will be board. So this has been storyboarded. Then we'll make another one called previous. Then we'll make another one called anim for animation. And we'll make one for light. And here I misspelled it. So again, click here, little 3 dots. And then we're just going in and we just change the spelling of it. Then we will make one called comp. And then the very last one is omitted. And I'm making this in big letters because omitted simply means this is no longer in the database. So this is no longer being used in a movie. So instead of just deleting it from here, it's a really good idea to just keep it in your database so that everyone knows that the shot is not gone. It's simply just not being used anymore. And we can make omitted a nice red color, like so. Frame range, you can set this to be 1001 to like whatever you want to here. This doesn't really matter at all. This is purely just visuals. And I just clicked the wrong hotkey here. There we go. Timeline. This is kind of cool because here we can now just click on the date we want, and we can set an end date as well. So now you can see there's an actual date for this. The reason I'm excited about this, I'll show you this in a second. It's not just because I'm excited about dates. Artist, this is where we can call this, we can make this Dieter, we can make Henning, we can make Morten. So now we have 3 artists. So who's actually working on this shot right now? This, it's very easy to change this. So it's really easy to see who's working on what. Reference, you can put in a link to this, and here you can write something like Sauron makes the ring close-up shot. You can do similar things here. You can say that, just copy this, and this is number 29. This one here is currently being boarded, and it has a different frame range. It has 4 frames different from this. And you can pick a different date range here, and we can just pick this from here to there. And this is a heading shot, and we don't need a description for this. And for this one, we could make this another sequence as well. So we can call this something like Frodo Shire. And we can make this code Frodo Shire. And if we need more shots like this, you simply click here, and now little plus key, and then you can make this Frodo Shire as well. So Frodo Shire, and we can call this 01. Frodo Shire, not 01, that's terrible naming, 010. You don't really want to use shots like, the first shot shouldn't be 01 and then 02 and 03. The reason why you don't want to do that is because what if you need to add a shot in the middle of it? It's much easier if the first shot is 10, then it's 20, 30, because if you need to add a shot in between, essentially between 1 and 2, you make this now shot 10 and shot 20, and you make the middle one shot 15. If you need to make a shot between those, you make that like shot 12 or shot 13. So it's just a much better system than making it shot 1. So just be aware of that. Yes, your shot count or your shot numbers will be really high, but honestly, that doesn't matter. Like numbers isn't at a premium here. So this will be shot 020. And we can say this is being animated and this is being comped. This is a weird pipeline here, but a weird order of things, but that's fine. You also usually want to start at 1001 as well when you're working. The reason is, again, the same thing. If you need to add more frames before the shot starts, which happens all the time, well, now you can't really do that. It's much easier to make the shot start from like 980 instead of like -20. So in this case, the shot might be from 982 to 1024. And you can just add some dates to this as well and make sure to include an end date. And we can do this like so and say who's working on it. And this is what I mean. Don't build something that you're not going to be using. For instance, if you don't actually use reference here, don't include it here. If you don't need a description, don't do that. So what we can do now, which is kind of cool, which is why I'm excited about the dates, is we can add a view to this. So we can now hit add view in top left of the table. And now we can set this to be a timeline. And we can call this view shots timeline. hit create. And now you can see we actually have a timeline of different shots. We also have a property type or property here not being used. So we can just delete this. And now you can see that we have a really good overview of the different shots. You can also move them up and down like so, if that's a bit easier. You can rename them, you can open them up like we did before with the page. And you can change all kinds of attributes. But what's cool here is that you can now change the timeline here directly. So this is a much better way of doing it than simply just looking at a calendar, because now you can actually get a proper overview. You can make sure there's overlap between certain shots. This is really handy if you have a lot of artists working on different things. So you can move stuff out of the way so that it becomes more, so the whole thing makes more sense. So maybe you prefer to be ascending like this. You can do this like so. So timeline is a really useful feature. So you can go between default view now, which you can click on these little 3 dots, and you can rename this to shots overview. And now you can go between the shots overview and the shots timeline. The way this works is that this is just data. These are just like data blocks, and you can access the data blocks through different views. So it's an incredibly powerful system. You can also add another one. Add view. I wouldn't necessarily do this, but you could. You can make this a calendar, and now you can see the different dates for this in a pure calendar view like this as well. If you want to delete something, you simply go to click the calendar view, click the 3 dots, and then you can delete this as well. So I highly recommend looking through these different views as well. It means you can essentially input data in one place and you can view it in so many ways. Now, last thing we'll do is we'll just make this a little bit nicer. We don't need all this space. And then we will go back into the main page here now. Now you can see we have shots. Then we'll make a similar one for assets. So we will go in here, type / on the keyboard, and then we'll type table. And this needs to be another full page table as well. This one will be quite different from the other one. It will look similar, but it will be quite different. So we can't really reuse too much from it. So we'll just make it from scratch. So we will call this assets, and then we will add a donut, because apparently all 3D models are now donuts. And the first one here will just be, what is the asset name? So what is it? Is it a sword or a ball or whatever it is? Then the second one is what type is it? So here you want to just set this to be type, multiselect, and select. So there's only one type ever. This would be something like environment, character, or prop. Then we have another one here, and we will make this into another select as well. And we will go through the different parts of the production. So we'll start off here with concept. Before we make any other ones now, we will finalize the data required for this column here so that we can just duplicate it. So we need some statuses here. So the first one here is not started. You haven't started on the asset yet. It's ready for pickup. It's in progress. Pending review. Final approved. And then I'll make like a ... And this is to separate who's working on it. So this has no functional use. This is purely for organization purposes. And then we will make names. So this will be Henning, Morten, and Jeter. So now if we click here now. So now if we click here, you can see all the different ones. So now you can see not started, pickup, ready for pickup, in progress, pending review, and final approved. So this is also in the order of the actual production. And then we have different names, and you can see we have this nice little separator. So now what we can do, we can duplicate this one now. So we just click here and hit duplicate. And now you can see we have copy of concept, and this will be model. And then we'll do the same thing now, duplicate, and this will be texture. Do the same thing now, duplicate, shading. And then you can say rig. And now you basically have the whole production here. You could, of course, go in with more granular. You could say like UV mapped and groomed or ready for effects, whatever it might be. But this is good enough for most things we need right now. And then we are going to be adding another one over here. Actually, first, we will just compress these a little bit because there's takes up a lot of space right now, and we don't need that. And also this level of overview gives you a really solid view of the production. It also means different people can work on different parts at the same time, and it's really easy to get an overview of what's actually going on. Then we will make another one called description. Like, what actually is this? This is an asset name, but what is it being used for? Do you need a comment on it? Sometimes you do. Sometimes there are specific requirements. Then we'll make another one here, and we'll call this LOD, and we'll make this into a select. So here, LOD is simple level of detail. And here we will use a system which is similar to what I used in VFX, where you have A, which is high, you have B, which is like mid, and then you have C, which is like more of a background thing. You could also have something like proxy as well, if it's purely being used for proxy geo. You can also have hero A, which is something that's crazy close up. So an example of this would be the cell phone the character uses and is close up to the camera is A, while the character itself, where you have a tracking shot into his eye, is hero A, or if you go crazy close up to a prop. So these are the ones I tend to use, where you have hero A, B, and C. And then again, we can make another one here called ref for reference. And then the last one can be a date one. So now we can, we'll just move this over as well so it'll be easier to see. We call this duration. You could call this deadline as well, but I find it to be a bit nicer that it's duration, because this actually gives you, well, the entire duration and not the final deadline. So it's easier to block out when an artist is working on something. So the last thing we need to do now is we need to go into type, and here we actually need to add some kind of attribute as well. So here we will have prop. Is it a prop? Cool, yes. Or is it a character? Then we can call it char, and is it an environment? We can call it environment. So now we can remove all these, and we can have something nice and simple. So this is a really good database for props. It gives you, or for all kinds of assets, it gives you a proper overview of what's going on, and it's very easy to see exactly what's happening to the model. Obviously, you have to keep this up to date as well. Whenever you do anything to your model, you have to update this. Which doesn't take a lot of time, honestly. You go in and you go like, yep, it's ready for pickup or it's in progress. So you just have to be methodical about it. So the first one is the one thing. Then this will be a prop, and this is in progress, and this is being made by Henning. In this case, you see it's set to select. We need multi-select. This is being made by me, and it's in progress. Then you can also say it's the model is not started, not started, not started, not started. And this just makes it very easy. So everything should really be not started unless you have indeed started this. Description, you can write whatever. The big ring. And ref and duration, we can put in something here. So we can say this takes me 2 days to do, and I'll do it from today's date until tomorrow. Then we can add another one, and this can be sort A, props. I'll just populate in some of these. The concept thing is final approved, and we are now actually ready to start modeling this. This is the description can be, we need something like needs glow map when baddies are near. And this is a hero prop. We don't have a reference for this, and this will take 2 days to do, so this is hero. Sort B, and also who's working on this as well. Let's make sure this is a Morton prop, and you can do the same thing for here. Now you can see that it's easy to see who's working on what based on this. So we'll just add this, and this is C, and this is from this date to this date, and this is a sword as well. Oh, sorry, this is a prop as well. Now, what's cool is you can add a view here as well, like we did under shots as well. This is something that's really useful. So now we can add a view, and we can add a timeline here and call this timeline assets. And now you can see the timeline as well. And you can see, oh crap, this didn't actually work. So now we can, really refine this based on how this looks. But what is cool here as well is that we can add a view and we can have a filter. This adds a little bit of complexity based on what we had before, because now we have a view and we're filtering the view as well. So we'll call this Henning tasks. So now you can see this will add just a regular list like we had before, or a regular table with everything. But what we can do now is we can go to the top right and we can click on filter. And here we can add a filter. And this means that it will only show us what we want to see. So add filter. And here we want to filter based on the name. So here, for instance, we can go in and we can say model, and this is exactly Henning. Then we could go in, add filter, or we can duplicate this one, and we can duplicate this, and we can say where texture shading is Henning. And we can just, so essentially we're making a filter where I want to see all my tasks, but nothing else. And now the last one was missing. I actually want to see some of my tasks is go to filter, add, or duplicate this one, duplicate, and then the last one was concept. And now you can see my task here. And now it filters this correctly based on only my tasks. So this is a really powerful way of working because I don't really care who's working on the other things if I'm just working. I just want to see this right away. You can do the same thing here. We could go to Henning tasks. We can do the 3 dots and we could duplicate this one. And now you can see copy of Henning tasks. And we can go in here and we can say Morten tasks. And now we go into filter, and the only thing we change here is we do Morten, 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 and Morten. And now you should see everything that's relating to Morten's task here. So now you can very quickly go between my tasks, Morten's tasks, and the default view. So this is an incredibly powerful way of working when it comes to managing your assets. Then we go back to the main page. And then we will just add some space between the production and the table here. So we can just add some space right here, and we can move this space down below. This is like a block, so you can just move these blocks wherever you want to. So now we have some space here. And then what I want is I want a wiki. So I want to have the production here, and I want to have the wiki over here. So we have some really quick overviews of what's going on. So just type wiki. Go to 3 dots, go to turn into, and then heading 3. Now we can move this over here. So now you can see we have 2 next to each other. Now, what we just have to do now is we have to make sure that these are indeed under the production one. Because you can see this is one column, but this guy here is not under any one of the columns. It's on a whole different 1 column row as well. So we just have to move these guys up. So you can see the blue line indicates that this is now under their production. So there we go. And then what we can do is now we can just make a page. So we can actually go under here, hit the enter key, type page. And this is where it's fairly straightforward. There's no fancy filtering or anything. This is just a page. And this will be something like a model checklist. And you can add an icon to this. I add icons to absolutely everything because it just makes it so much nicer. So here we could make this into a light. So we can turn this into a lamp or torch, whatever you want to do. Then we will add some text into this. So we have just some general text here, just telling you what is this page about, what's going on. Then we can do text and turn into, and we can set this to call out. And now you can see you get this nice little icon here. You can change this as well to whatever you want to, which just makes it a little bit nicer in terms of layout. And then what we can do is we can type, for instance, Maya, and this will be what do we need to know in Maya, like pure technical things. And then we can make one called technical. And now we can make a 2-page layout of this. So now we can drag this over here until you see it to the side. And now you can see we have a 2 column layout. So now we can just make this an H3 as well and turn this into an H3. And now under here, we want to make little checkboxes. So now you can click this little 6 dots, turn into, and then we can turn this into a to-do list. So now you have a to-do list, and this would be groups, and we can say this is _GRP. And then I'll just cheat and I'll use this from the other doc I just made before. So now you have you have all the to-do lists. So now whenever you go in, you can just click, yep, I made all these ones. The to-do lists are also really handy if you want to have a specific to-do list as well. You might just make a page called like Henning to do, and you have a to-do list for today, and you just fill that in. Then for technical things as well, you can do the same thing here. You can just fill in the data you have right here. And now you can just make sure that every single time you go through your model publishing, you can just go through and check these all off. Then what's also pretty handy is if you need some kind of specific code snippets as well, you can easily do that. So I have a little Python script which is used a lot. And then we can just hit enter a few times. Just go down here. So we have some space we can work with. You can just paste in the script, and you can see the formatting doesn't work at all because this is just text. You couldn't necessarily work with this as a script. What you could do is you can click here, and now you can turn into, and you say code. And now this is a functional code, and you can just move this all the way down like so. And now this is actual selectable code. You can change the language up here as well. So you can change it to Python. I do not think this supports Mel. That would have been very, very surprising, but it does support Python. So that's going to have correct syntax based on Python. So now up here, you can call this code snippets. So for instance, if there are some code snippets used all the time, but it's not enough to necessarily be a plugin or a script you have in your repository. It's just something you use once in a while. You can select this, put this into Maya, and use this quite often. So that's how you make a general wiki page like this. I make these wiki pages all the time. They bring me so much joy, and the amount of time I'm saving is insane. It's definitely worth spending some time on wiki pages and general shot production sheets like this. It takes a bit of time to set up, but once you do it, you will just keep an overview of your entire project. Next up, we'll make another wiki page, which will be right here, and we'll put it over there. So I'll just type page, and then this will be displacement settings. Add icon, and we'll add some kind of mountain, because this kind of indicates displacement. And then we will copy paste something from an earlier document. So what we have here is we have some images and we have some headers. What's cool here is that now these are H1, and H1 doesn't just make it bigger or smaller. It can actually be used for some kind of table of content. So let's say we have some pages down here, and here we have something like ZBrush displacement settings. ZBrush displacement export, and we turn this into an H1 as well. And here, H3, sorry about that, H1. And here you could have whatever you want to. Now up here, you can hit enter, and you can hit TOC, table of content. And now you can see that we get a nice little table of content here. So displacement maps, obviously it's going to go right there. So it's not very exciting. All the way down. So now you can just very easily see where these are. So it's incredibly easy to make these kind of wiki pages. And each page in Notion is the same, meaning that you could add a table to this as well. Just because it's a page doesn't mean you can't put something into it. This is also a page. Everything in Notion is a page. So now we can move this guy over here. And if you want to, for a reason, you want to add a table here, you can add a table inline, and you can start putting stuff in here as well. So it's a really nice mix of different kind of databases you can have. So we're just going to delete this. So the nice thing as well is that you can really style this to really look quite nice. If, for instance, there is something here which is crazy important, you can mark the text. You can go over here, text color, and you can change the background as well. So we can choose orange color. And now you can just see that this has this nice orange color. So I use this instead of highlighting. Then I believe the hotkey is Control. Yeah, the hotkey is Control Shift and H. So if you have just added some text like this to it, it will Control Shift and H will add the text you just used, which is really useful because you will be doing this quite a lot, particularly if you want to style something like this. Then as the very last thing we'll actually create is we'll make another page, and this will be for a schedule. So here, this will be schedule, and right away, we'll just add a little calendar to it. And under here, we will have two tables. The first table will be for weekly tasks, and the second will be for milestones. These are very simple tables to make, but they can really give you a nice overview of everything that's going on. So type table, and this will be an inline, and this will be weekly tasks. So here we have names, and here we have the person. So we are just going to make this a name and select, and here we can again type Henning, type Morten, and we can type Jeter. And now this will be rigging, more, door, and environment. Whatever rigging and environment actually means. Trust me, I know CG. Then we have texturing more door. And then Jeter will be working on previous for ring sequence. So now we have a nice overview of what everyone is doing in the beginning of the week. We'll just make sure that everyone knows what's going on. We have good, honest communication about what's happening. You can also see we have count. This can be handy if you have, let's say you have a lot of shots and you just want to see how many shots you have. In this case, we don't care, so we're going to set none. So there's no reason to calculate anything here. Then we'll make another one, table, and make this another inline. And then we'll set milestones. So these are when we should have certain things done by. So here we can set this to be a date, and here we can set the first one can be finish previous. Then it's all assets done, shot production done, and then you can do comp as well. And then here you can set this to be deadline, and you can just input different dates in the different areas. So this is very simple, but it's a very powerful way of getting an overview of the project like this. Then we're pretty much done with what we need right here. But what we can do is we can make this a little nicer. We can, for instance, add a little icon up here. So we can make this little ring. And then you could add a cover as well. And this will just add a default cover, but you could, of course, add your own cover as well. So you can go here, upload, choose an image, and now you can choose some kind of image. So this just makes it a little bit nicer. You can reposition, just to reposition so it works. I prefer to do this for my big pages. I'm a visual person. Stuff which looks better just makes me use it more. So overall, first, let's just move this here. So overall, this is an incredibly powerful way of managing your projects. Remember, build what you need to build. Do not overbuild something. If this is too complicated, you should simplify it down. If this doesn't have enough control or doesn't give you enough control over what you need to just add more to it. But overall, this kind of system has just saved my butt so many times, particularly when you have things like shot production, where it's really easy to get an overview, and also when it comes to your wiki. There are going to be so many things you need to write down, and this tends to get lost within emails or Discord messages, Slack messages, whatever it might be. It's really, really tricky to get all the info in one spot. In my previous productions, we've been using Google Docs a lot, which kind of works, but it's a bit of a nightmare to work with as well. So just keep all your wiki documents here. And this is also obviously really handy because you can very, very easily reach people. So last thing as well, if you go up here to the right, you can hit share, and you can hit share to web. And now you get this weird fossil donkey little string here. This depends on your project. This will be unique to you. And now you can hit copy. And now if you were to go into a new browser like this, you can now just share this link with somebody else. I use this a lot when it comes to my own tutorials because I need to get feedback on the tutorials. So for instance, if you need to share this with somebody outside your studio or somebody outside your school, whatever it might be, it just means that they can now get access to it, but they cannot edit anything. They can just see what's actually going on here and get an overview of it. So all in all, Notion is by far one of my favorite tools, and I use it daily. And I have a long list of wikis and long list of sheets and tables and whatever you can imagine. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. If you have any tips for using Notion, feel free to leave those in the comments. If you have any general production tips, or if you have some links to some cool Notion templates you use a lot as well, feel free to leave those in the comments. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.